I'd like to call the Booker T. Washington Commemorative Commission meeting to order. And do we need to call a roll, Mike? MJ? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Locke?
Present.
Senator Stanley?
Here.
Senator Eben?
Here.
Senator Servo?
Here.
Senator Suderline?
Yes.
Madam Susan Clark-Shaw? Madam Chair, you have a quorum?
Okay, thank you very much. This is our first meeting since May 9th of 2022, so it's been a while. And that meeting was way out west at the office of Senator Stanley. So I want to thank him for hosting us at that time. We have one new member, and that is Senator Stanley.
Yes. Thank you.
Who's been added to our commission. So thank you for joining us. And our first order of business, although it's not on the agenda, is to adopt a policy on virtual meetings. Does everybody have that? Yes. Okay, so we have a policy on electronic meetings that we need to adopt in the event that we need remote participation. And could we have someone to go over, do we need someone to go over this? Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, I am playing the role of Amigo Wade today, hopefully as well as he can. So we have put together the proposed policy for electronic communication through meetings, all virtual meetings, and then a remote participation by members. This is born out of the Chapter 597 of the 2022 Acts of Assembly, which added a new section to the FOIA laws allowing for meetings held through electronic communication means, which outlines the requirements for holding meetings through electronic communication means in situations other than declared states of emergency. So pursuant to this, you would allow members are allowed to participate in a public body by remote participation in a public meeting if there has been a policy that has been adopted by the entire public body by a recorded vote. So that's what we have today. This goes and gives you the full range of virtual meeting usage under the current law. Is very standard compared to a lot of the other ones that we've been adopting in other commissions and councils. So you all have that before you today.
Okay, are there any questions with regard to the electronic meetings policy?
Madam Chair.
Senator Suderline.
Thanks. I'm happy to make a motion on that if you'd like.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the draft policy, and then speaking to that motion.
Okay, we need a second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the electronic meetings policy. Discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I generally am not big on us being able to do things not physically present, although I think this commission is different than almost all the others in that we're simply working for this commemorative monument, and I think that it works well because the funds come from private sources, and we're not actually, there's nothing we do here that places restrictions on anyone's life or liberty, so I think that this policy is perfect in helping us do our work and doesn't disserve the public in any way.
Thank you for that. So we have a motion to adopt the electronic meetings policy. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so we have that policy. The next thing we need to do, we're kind of far behind in our work on the commemoration for Booker T. Washington. So the next item on our agenda is to discuss RFP for an artist. And there are a couple of draft proposals before you of things that have been done in the past. One for the Virginia Indian Commemorative from the Virginia Indian Commemorative Commission, and one from the Virginia Women's Monument Commission. And so we, like I said, we are kind of behind on doing this, so we need to move forward on doing an RFP for an artist. And I'm trying to remember, Madam Clerk, did we decide on what we were going to do? We were doing a bust?
I don't think we have decided whether it's going to be a bust or a bust is going to be between $55,000 and $60,000.
Sure, Light's got that.
There you go.
statue is around 200,000.
So I think we need to decide what it is that we want to do to commemorate Booker T. Washington first, and then move to an RFP for an artist. So any discussion on what it is that we want?
Madam Chair.
Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in a perfect world, there would be a statue of Booker T. Washington outside the Capitol. There's a lot of space constraints, and I did not see a path forward for that. So what the resolution that we passed was for a bust, and I also thought it should go in the old House chamber. Unfortunately, the leadership at the time, which has since changed twice over there, did not see the wisdom of that. So we decided in the resolution it would go into our old Senate chamber. I think a bust would go very well there if Madam Chair, in her knowledge of other things happening on the Capitol grounds, thinks we should do differently. I defer to that, having already articulated what I think the optimal outcome would be. But I think the most important outcome is that there is something, as I've said before, I want a traditional rendering of Booker T. Washington, what people, so when they see it, they say, someone that doesn't know any better says, why is there a statue of Booker T. Washington here? And then we get to tell the story of, in addition to being a national civil rights icon, he's a Virginian, and how important his story was in Virginia, as having been born in Virginia, emancipated in Virginia, and educated in Virginia, in addition to having several important public events in Virginia. So those are my thoughts, Madam Chair.
Okay, so does anyone have any different feeling about this? Senator Stanley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would ask perhaps Madam Clerk, who has been a great steward for the exterior of this Capitol building and deserves all the credit for how it looks today, especially with this building going up. Is there no space for something? Because, you know, you want somebody of that stature that made that big a difference. And of the stories that I know from the property that I own and of the honor of owning, and being down from the Booker T. Washington Monument and Park right there in Franklin County on 122, is that the more exposure that you can have to his writings, to his legacy, to his thoughts, to his words, to his actions, the better we all are. And sometimes the old Senate chamber is not where the public can see it the most. And so I would inquire, Madam Chair, if I could, of the clerk, are we limited on our space out there? Is there no spot for something like this?
We are limited on space as laid out in the landscape plan for the Capitol. And because it is a historic landmark, we have to be careful about overcrowding Capitol Square. We went through a lot of discussion about that with the Indian Tribute and the Women's Monument. And they were basically, at that point, the only two spaces that we felt we could use for those two monuments. There is a vacant space on the North Drive. The old Senate chamber is designed right now, historically, to reflect the American Revolution and Jamestown. And then the Jefferson Room, of course, refers to Thomas Jefferson and his lifetime. And then the old House chamber was initially designated as a museum to honor historic and significant Virginians. There might be a change in attitude in the House now. I certainly can't answer for that. That is part of the tour. The old Senate chamber is part of the tour that the tour guides give. So all the people who come through on a guided tour go to those places.
Madam Chair, follow up.
And the one other place that has been discussed was where the bust of Washington was in the extension as you come from Bank Street. Because we don't have that bust anymore, we returned it to the National Park Service. We felt like we had enough George Washington.
Who can have enough George Washington, Madam
Well,
Clerk?
I mean, he has a portrait.
I mean, I know
He has
Senator Serval can't
full
get
life.
enough George Washington, and Senator Eben can't get enough George Washington.
Enough to go around.
That wasn't the best way to put that.
So, Madam Chair, if I may just, so, we had the spot where the Harry Flood Bird statue was. Is that an open space that would be available? It would seem very poignant and perhaps right to replace it perhaps with a great Virginian like Booker T. Washington. That open, or did, when we moved the fence line back, kind of take that
I
out?
think that, Madam Chair, if I could ask the clerk, I think that the Darden Garden was redesigned when this new building was constructed. So where the statue was of Harry Byrd, I think
Is the escape hatch?
that's what's there. Okay.
Oh, it says he's, oh, okay, sorry.
So, Madam Chair, if I could ask Madam Clerk to follow on Senator Stanley's idea, the front of the General Assembly building where the clock is and so forth is not currently configured in such a way that a statue could be fit in there and given prominence, is it?
That is designated, where the clock is, all that is Darden Garden in honor of Colgate Darden, and there's a plaque there.
Okay, so we'd be kind of putting it into a different memorial space if we were to do that.
I'm sorry,
We'd be impeding on someone else's memorial space, the Darden Garden, if we were to put it there.
right.
But that's where the statue of Senator Byrd was, I thought.
No.
No, it was on, oh, further out, okay.
Madam Chair. Yeah, I had a kind of a baseline question. So I remember the night when all those statues, or busts, I guess, got moved in a statue. And I thought Senator Norman put in a resolution a couple different times to try to reassert joint control over everything except our chambers and our foyer. What's the current status on who controls what's part of the Capitol? I mean, did that get clarified ever? Or?
No, that died.
What's that?
We're separate from all of this, but we are doing a recodification of Title 30, which is related to the General Assembly and a number of commissions. If there was a time or a place to maybe define what Capitol Square is, that type of thing, you could address some of these things.
Yeah, Capitol Square is defined.
There's a couple different definitions in the
Yeah.
code, so we're working with you to find out
Right.
which one we should
I
get.
just read that the other day. That would be a good place to have the General Assembly take over Capitol Square. His was taking control of Capitol Square and giving it to the Capitol Square Preservation Council.
So you like that?
No.
Sometimes my reach exceeds my grasp, but I would think a statue would be not only appropriate and just, but even in the area that we've just discussed, even better. I know that, and I will tell this story very briefly if I can. My father's hero, and you know this, was Booker T. Washington. He would make me read Up From Slavery every year to remind me of the importance of education, perseverance, and overcoming obstacles in life. I think that's a story that is not just universal, but needs to be shared and remembered and honored, and that a bust would not quite get there. And I think tied into what then now it would rest on the area where that statue was placed for the reasons that it was placed there would be instructional in and of itself. And so for those reasons, I would support a statue. I would do everything I could to raise enough money to make that happen, and I think at that location would be appropriate.
And which location are you?
The old Harry F. Byrd location. Unless Madam Clerk says that's not possible.
We can check with General Services and see about that location. I mean, there was a statue there, so there's no reason there couldn't be another statue there. Because of some of the conversations that we have been dealing with over the last few years about Old City Hall and some other things, dealing with Capitol Square, and things can change, but the continuity for the building and all has landed often on the desk of the clerk of the House and the clerk of the Senate. Not that we asked for that responsibility, but it's because of the institutional perspective, and now DGS has been turned upside down. So that institutional perspective is gone.
So would DGS have to, if, say we decided we want to do a statute, would DGS have to approve our doing that?
No.
Okay. Would they have to approve the site?
We would work with them on the site, just like we did with the Women's Monument and the Indian Tribute. Just, you know, where's the landscape plan? Where could we put a monument? Could we put one back here, if that's what y'all decide to do?
Okay.
And I will say Bonji has been very easy to work with since she's come on board, and she understands the institution and the dynamics of this beautiful place.
See, if y'all had come to Hampton, I could have shown you the statue, but you didn't want to come to Hampton. Adam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not to belabor, but I want to ask the clerk, if we were to put it on the site of the old statue that was referred to, do we have to get approval from the House of Delegates for that site, or is, so the way I see it, we have a choice. If we want a full statue, it seems like one visible location would be the statue of the old bird statue, the site of the old bird statue. And the other option would be, if we can't get that site agreed to put a bust in either the old Senate chamber or the old House chamber, if the speaker was willing to host it over there. Is that a fair site? I don't know where that leads us, but I think we need to talk to the House if we want to have a full statue on outdoors.
That division of space in the Capitol was adopted at a joint rules meeting. That joint rules committee is not in existence now. It wasn't put in statute, so that could be changed.
So,
And I don't think anyone, except maybe a couple of people in the House, envisioned that we were going to divide the old Senate chamber and the Jefferson room. And to us, that was historic, and we weren't going to change that. But
okay, so we would have to, I'm sorry, Adam, I'm sorry, need to be more formal. Senator Evan. The fallback would be the bust, but preference would go for the statue. Is that the recommendation?
I think so.
Okay. Is that what we're agreeing to?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Servo.
I appreciate Senator Stanley's affinity for his constituent, which grew up about 2 miles from my grandparents' home place, and so I get where he's coming from on wanting a really big memorial instead of a little one. We also just need to be cognizant that increases our fundraising need by what? By 10 times, I think, right? $200,000 is that what we're talking about? So I think as long as we're prepared to deal with that reality, which we got to find the money, that's going to be the issue, I think, more than anything. All right. I hear Senator Stanley says he's going to cover the difference if we don't make it.
And the Cerebell much for Franklin County. We can do that. We can raise 200.
Oh, we can raise 200,000. Come on, we can get that out that lawyer's pocket.
We'll do it like we used to, Cerebell. Cerebell, we'll tie 10% of our earnings. We should get that whipped out in about 3 months.
coming from the person who spent a lot of time on the road going to family reunions and raising money for the Women's Monument.
Yes. And we have her right here.
Madam Chair,
Senator Sutherland.
so I think then, if you would be so willing, perhaps we should have you in, and one of the things that, obviously I drafted the legislation this way because I think it's smart, but by having the chair of this commission be the chair of Senate Rules so that we know that it's always someone in a good negotiating posture, I think it'd be great to have you talk with the speaker about what we're seeking to do, and then we act next based on your read of the situation.
Yeah, I can do that.
And I think what we've done is kind of jump on our thing to thoughts on moving forward, but also there is in the Kellogg Foundation right now, they are giving grant money to localities, governments, our NAACP in Franklin County for Union soldiers, African Americans who served in the Union, for the Union during the Civil War. I mean, there are many ways I think that we can raise the money for the statue that are more than just going to individual donors. I think there's grant money out there, which would mean even more to me that I think we need to put as priority the statue first.
Would you be able to, at the very least, begin drafting an RFP if we know that we want to do the full statute? Okay.
And Madam Chair, not to be,
Senator Stanley.
I served, and now I'm back on it, the Martin Luther King Commission when then Senator, now Congresswoman McClellan was able to get an amazing artist from an RFP. There may be an RFP from that we could look at.
For the Emancipation Statue.
And that is an amazing piece of work, I mean, in history. So I'm sure we have something we can
Right.
copy of.
And for the fundraising piece, the money flows through the Capital Foundation, correct? Okay. Okay, so since we mentioned fundraising, I already asked somebody for some money. And they're willing.
What did Serval say?
I didn't ask him yet, but I did ask a foundation, and they're willing to give. And this was before I even talked about what it was going to look like. And they said, just let them know. I just need to know what to ask for.
It's about 200, well, the women's monument, those statues were 200,000 each. And some of that is maintenance. But, I don't know if you've really looked at those women, but the detail is just amazing. And they're also the ones who did Jefferson in the extension.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, just briefly, those are statues that I think are also representative of what I hope for in just a traditional rendering of Booker T. Washington. And I'd like it, as we go forward with it, is for it to be what Booker T. Washington looked like basically at the height of his fame. So the photos we're so familiar with, so people immediately recognize him. Thank you, Madam Chair.
with quotes around, of different quotes from him, and in period. I think this may have been like the 1890s.
Stump speeds.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of right of education.
Okay, so I think we are down to, so moving forward, I will talk to the speaker about what we're planning. And so that we can start to move forward, and each one of us has a responsibility for raising money. And toward this endeavor, we know at minimum we need $200,000. Yeah. So, and Madam Clerk, we can get started on the RFP, correct? Okay. So we're down to, we have one public person here. Got anything you want to add?
No, she's here, I'm driving her home.
You're here with, you admitted you're here with him? So-
Now that needs to be public comment.
Okay,
You need a
so,
lawyer, let me know.
okay, so I think we're done. So we have a plan to move forward with doing this great work in honor of a great Virginian, Booker T. Washington. And again, I want to thank you, Senator Suderline, for helping us get this work started.
Great margin.
So,
Good committee.
okay, all right, so if there's
Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.